What if I told you that the reality you perceive, the very fabric of your existence, is nothing but a reflection, a shadow cast by a hidden vibrational code, an ancient energetic manuscript that few dare to decipher? Imagine for a moment that limitation, scarcity, the perpetual ebb and flow of frustration are not inescapable destinies, but patterns programmed deep within your being, installed without your conscious consent. This is not mere knowledge. It is a key, a master key that will allow you to free yourself from the invisible chains that bind you to a pre-established script, revealing the arcane truth of your creative power. We will delve into the teachings of a forbidden book, a text, whispered among alchemists and sages, which reveals the 6 vibrational levels, the ascending steps toward mastering your destiny, the inner alchemy that will transmute your perception of the esoteric universe and the manifestation of your own reality. Prepare for a journey of self-discovery, where every word is a path to enlightenment, every concept a strand of the cosmic matrix. If this quest, this yearning for the ineffable, resonates in your soul, I invite you to join our community of truth explorers. Leave a like if you feel the spark of revelation, share your first impressions in the comments, and subscribe to this channel so that together we can unravel the veils of illusion and reclaim the sovereignty of our spirit. This is only the threshold of what is to come. Deeper mysteries await. This vibrational code, my dear seekers, is not a mere theory, but the fundamental architecture of existence, the very breath of the cosmos. It is whispered in subatomic particles, resonates in the sacred geometry of crystals, and pulsates in the silent symphony of galaxies. The ancients, in their secret chambers and forgotten temples, already intuited that everything we perceive, from the solidity of rock to the ethereality of thought, is nothing more than a manifestation of different frequencies, a harmonic or dissonant dance of energetic waves. In the hermetic texts of Thoth, veiled beneath hieroglyphics and parables, the fiat lux was spoken of not as a simple divine mandate, but as the first vibration, the primordial spark that gave rise to form and substance. To understand this is to recognize that we are not in a universe of static objects, but in an ocean of pulsating energy, where every thought, every emotion, every intention emits its own frequency, tuning or detuning our personal reality to the cosmic orchestra. Reality, as we know it, is a consensual illusion, a hologram projected by the interaction of these countless vibrations. This is the art of tuning, the true legacy of the alchemists, the power to mold the etheric clay of being dot. And how does this control and manipulation of invisible patterns operate? Imagine etheric threads weaving the web of collectivity, whispering narratives of limitation and scarcity into the global subconscious. From birth, we are bombarded with frequencies that shape our perception, educational systems that standardize, thinking media that dictates reality, social structures that impose hierarchies and fears. These are the invisible mantras that program us, the imposed dissonances that distance us from our natural frequency of abundance and sovereignty. The ancient Gnostics, in their secret Nag Hammadi scrolls, already warned about archons, entities, or principles that, not necessarily malignant in themselves, seek to maintain the illusion of a fragmented and limited universe, feeding on our own dissonant energy. Their control is not physical, but energetic, a subtle interference in our ability to resonate with the higher truth of our essence dot. So how do we begin to understand this code? To hear the true melody? It is not knowledge acquired in worldly libraries, but an attunement that emerges from the inner sanctum. It requires the awakening of an inner ear, an extrasensory perception that discerns the frequencies underlying form. The shamans of ancient cultures, with their ecstatic journeys and sacred diets, sought to lift the veils, listening to the songs of the spirit of the earth and the cosmos. Their rituals were not superstition, but advanced techniques for altering their own vibration and that of their community, healing illnesses, bringing rain, or invoking visions. The key lies in deep stillness, in meditation that quiets mental noise, allowing the resonance of the higher self to filter through, revealing the true sequences of our original design, not the imposed one. The first release of this understanding is not a dramatic explosion, but a gentle awakening. It begins with recognition, the subtle sensation that something doesn't fit with the imposed narrative. It is the spark of doubt that ignites in the face of obvious manipulation, the inner voice that whispers a different truth. Zen masters called it satori, a flash of enlightenment that momentarily breaks the illusion. This initial release manifests itself in small disruptions, the instinctive rejection of toxic patterns, the emergence of stifled creativity, the rise of an inner strength to say no to what was previously accepted out of inertia. It is like a cell that, upon remembering its original blueprint, begins to heal itself, correcting the aberrations imposed by the environment. It is the first breath of sovereignty, the first crack in the wall of illusion, through which the light of your true self begins to filter, reconfiguring your energetic field. This seminal understanding is the threshold, the prerequisite for ascending the 6 vibrational levels we have discussed, the steps toward mastery. Each level demands greater attunement, a deeper purification of interferences. The first step, the foundation of presence, is nothing less than the conscious affirmation of your own vibrational existence, anchoring it in the truth that you are a being of energy, not a mere physical body. It involves feeling and accepting the vibration of your being without judgment, without the distortion of external patterns. It is the 0 point, the initial calibration, before we can even contemplate transmutation. In the next gathering, we will unveil the mysteries of this first level, the ancient practices for anchoring your presence, and the dangers that lie in wait for those who attempt to ascend without this solid foundation. We speak of the foundation of presence, that immovable anchor in your vibratory essence, the truth that you are beings of energy. But what is this presence without the faculty that gives it direction, that transforms it from a mere being to a doer, a sculptor of the visible? It is here that attention reveals its most intimate and powerful face. It is not a simple glance, nor a fleeting thought that crosses the mind, but the concentrated emanation of your being, a torrent of subtle energy that, since the dawn of time, the sages have recognized as the true clay from which existence is molded. The Nag Hammadi scrolls, in cryptic fragments of the Apocryphon of John, whisper of how the marker, the first thought of the unbegotten, by placing its attention on the abyss, brought into existence the first emanations, the reflection of its own infinity. Our attention, on a smaller scale, replicates this divine act. It is the spark of the Creator within each of us, a muscle of the soul that few understand and even fewer fully master. It is the true portal between the unmanifest and the tangible, the bridge between dream and form. This is not an ethereal and diffuse concept to be dissolved in the mist of speculation. Visualize attention not as a scattered light illuminating a space, but as a vibrational laser of light emerging from the deepest core of your being, a conscious, focused, and powerful emanation. The ancient Templars, in their most secret rituals, not only meditated in silence, but practiced the intentional projection of their will, aware that the Word made flesh spoken of in the Scriptures was the materialization of sustained and pure attention. This laser possesses a unique frequency, that of your own essential vibration, and when projected into the quantum field, that vast ocean of as yet unmanifested possibilities, it enters into resonance. There, at that exact point where the concentrated energy of your attention rests, the formless is condensed, given density, and granted a palpable form that previously existed only as a floating potentiality. It is the primordial tool of every cosmic architect, the wand that, with a simple act of focus, sculpts reality from the invisible canvas of existence, leaving its unmistakable imprint. And it is precisely in the direction of this laser, in the choice of its target, where the most terrifying and liberating power resides. When your attention, whether conscious or unconscious, clings to fear, lack, and scarcity, what do you think is brewing and magnified in your personal vibrational field? The answer, like an amplified echo, is a reverberation of that same limitation. Your energy field, like a faithful mirror, can only reflect and materialize the intensity of your focus, attracting more of what has been fed to it. This is not a divine external judgment, but an immutable law of resonance that operates without favoritism. The secret teachings of the Book of Thoth, veiled in hieroglyphic symbolism, insist that he who gazes upon the shadow becomes the shadow. Your energy field becomes imbued with the frequencies of whatever you focus on, becoming a magnet for experiences and circumstances that vibrate in the same octave. It is a self-imposed programming, a vibrational decree that, without discernment, chains you to the reality you most fear or lack, simply by giving it your most valuable energy, your precious creative breath. On the contrary, if that same purer and concentrated vibrational light is directed toward abundance, toward gratitude for what already is, toward the unlimited possibility of what can be, the universe has no choice but to respond with a symphony of aligned manifestation. The masters of inner alchemy did not seek external gold in their crucibles, but rather the transmutation of consciousness, understanding that the unwavering focus on plenitude, on the inherent perfection of creation, was the true philosopher's stone. The story of the monk Bodhi, who, in the midst of a devastating famine, maintained his focus on divine provision and the interconnectedness of all, and how his community not only survived, but thrived, is not a fable, but an irrefutable testament to this unbreakable law. His attention was a beacon of light in the darkness, an anchor for abundance in a sea of scarcity and despair. Your vibrational field became a vortex of attraction for resources, ideas, and opportunities that ordinary reason would dictate as impossible. Reality, inherently flexible, bends to the sustained will of trained, conscious attention, yielding to its silent decree. Thus, attention reveals itself as the rudder of your destiny, the chisel with which you carve the formless marble of your existence, the pen with which you write your personal epic. It is the key to unlocking not only your individual reality, but also to actively contributing to the co-creation of the collective tapestry. The guardians of the forbidden temples, those who guarded the deepest knowledge, knew that the sum of individual attentions, the collective resonance of human foci, creates the karma of an era, the vibrational ether where the future realities of civilizations are sown. To understand that each moment of focus is an act of creation, a seed planted in the cosmic garden of possibilities, is to assume a profound and sacred responsibility. But this understanding, crucial as it is only the beginning of true mastery. We have revealed the nature of attention as a vibrational laser that shapes, but mastery lies not only in its direction, but in the purity of its source, in the internal alchemy that allows this light to always be crystalline and free from the null, distortions of the ego and limiting beliefs. And that purity, that clarity of intention and vibration, is the next mystery to unravel, a journey toward the perfect resonance that awaits at the higher levels of your ascension. The purity of intention, that pristine resonance we mentioned, is often veiled by an intricate labyrinth of invisible chains. These are not forged in the furnace of your conscious experience, but etched into the subtle ether of your being, long before memory had a voice. We are speaking of an underlying programming, a subtle archetype, an echo of forgotten ages and immemorial lineages, which operates like an ancestral algorithm inserted without explicit consent. It is a compendium of silent mandates, inherited, fears and imposed truths, camouflaged beneath the skin of what you believe to be your own will. This invisible matrix, like a cosmic puppeteer, orchestrates your most intimate reactions, weaves the threads of your choices, and, with almost undetectable skill, confines you to pre-charted paths. It is the surreptitious force that shapes the prism through which your attention, your precious vibrational laser, is projected onto reality, distorting its original, pure brilliance. Thus, your perception is not a spotless mirror, but a surface carved by silent, alien hands. The roots of this programming are as deep as the tree of life itself, extending beyond individual childhood to touch the karmic sediments of fallen civilizations, the ancestral pacts of forgotten clans, and the collective imprints of a humanity in constant evolution. It is not merely social conditioning or received education, but a vast network of archetypes and energetic patterns that have sedimented in the collective unconscious over eons. Some mystical traditions, veiled in the forbidden scrolls of Zoroaster or the allegories of certain Gnostic texts recovered at Nag Hammadi, whisper of demiurgic entities or archons, interpreted not always as external beings, but as complex energy patterns that act as silent programmers of consensual reality that have woven a veil of illusion around human consciousness. This illusion is not a meaningless fantasy, but a complex vibrational structure, an energetic construct that, once internalized, seems inescapable. It is the curtain of Maya, unfurled over the scene of your existence, casting shadows that you mistake for the naked truth, the primordial reality. And from this programming emanates what we call autopilot, a state of sleepy consciousness, where life unfolds in repetitive and predictable cycles. Look around you, and often in your own mirror, the incessant repetition of the same relational problems, the financial patterns that repeat themselves, the same insecurities that sabotage new opportunities, the emotions that are revived with the familiarity of a learned script. This is not coincidence or divine design. It is the faithful echo of that invisible code. It is as if a pre-recorded tape were playing over and over again in the player of your soul, dictating the lines of your work without you questioning who originally wrote it. In this state, true choice becomes a chimera, as every apparent decision is a logical ramification of an already established algorithm. You move through time and space, believing yourself to be masters of your own free will, while invisible threads, woven from the depths of the collective and individual subconscious, move you like puppets on a prefabricated stage of your own illusion. The manifestations of this programming are as varied as they are subtle, ranging from the most insidious cognitive biases and visceral reactions to specific stimuli to the deepest aspirations that, ironically, might not be yours at all, but rather implanted by others. How many times have you felt an inexplicable internal resistance to beneficial change? A silent voice whispering, "You're not good enough," or "This is too risky," even as your conscious logic cries out for expansion. This is the voice of the program, the guardian of the illusory comfort zone, an invisible perimeter that keeps you confined within the borders of what is already known and predictable. It is the reason why you find yourself again and again in identical situations, with the same archetypes of people in your path, attracting similar challenges, unable to break a cycle that you attribute to luck or fate, when in reality it is the resonance of your own internal script. The ancient oracles and esoteric teachings of Kabbalah, in urging know thyself, sought not only self-reflection, but the discovery of those internal governors that dictate personal reality. Thus, this programming is nothing more than the fundamental distortion of the purity of your attention. If your attention is the cosmic laser capable of sculpting realities, this invisible programming is the defective lens, the clouded prism, that refracts and deflects the original light. Autopilot is, in essence, the manifestation of unconscious attention, adrift from your vital focus, where creative energy is directed by pre-existing codes rather than a conscious and sovereign intention. True mastery, then, lies not only in the direction of attention, as we have contemplated, but in the cleansing and purification of this internal lens. The first step toward liberation, my dear seekers, is none other than the awareness of these. Chains, the courageous act of lifting the veil and looking squarely at the puppeteer. Only then can the sacred process of disidentification and ultimately conscious reprogramming begin. But how do you unravel such ancient and profound threads? How do you rewrite a script engraved in time itself? And what ancient tools await? This sacred work of willpower? This is the next mystery waiting to be revealed in the secret chambers of the soul, a challenge that invites you to transcend the predetermined. The first vibrational threshold, the prison of survival, is a subtle network where fear disguises itself in the garb of normality and reasonableness. What you have internalized as unavoidable responsibility or sensible realism are merely benevolent names for the ethereal chains that bind your spirit to a perpetual cycle of seeking and defending, accumulation and protection. Since time immemorial, the collective psyche has been trained to fear the abyss of the unknown, forging social structures that, under the veil of protection and stability, have ultimately imprisoned individual consciousness. This low vibration, this echo of a precarious existence where every day was a literal battle for survival, manifests today as a constant restlessness, a subtle shadow that accompanies every decision, limiting your horizon of possibilities and dictating your perceptions. Accepting scarcity as the natural and immutable landscape of existence. The notions of responsibility and realism are, in fact, the most ingenious masks of the puppet master of fear. You have been persuaded that being responsible is to carry the weight of other people's expectations, a servitude disguised as virtue, while realism is a self-imposed blindness to any possibility that challenges the established paradigm, an aversion to dreaming beyond the bars of the possible. The ancient Gnostic texts, in their veiled warnings about the archons, spoke of entities that created an illusory reality to keep humanity in a state of torpor. Is this survivalist vibration not the modern manifestation of that archon veil? A system that convinces you to remain in your cage for your own safety? You have been trained to compete, to conform, to replicate the patterns of scarcity and fear, dissolving your identity into what should be and silencing the voice of the soul that yearns for genuine expansion. In this vibrational prison, your attention, that cosmic creative energy we have spoken of, is irremediably diverted toward what is lacking. Observe how everyday conversation, the media, and even your innermost thoughts revolve incessantly around lack. Insufficient money, scarce time, precarious health, imperfect relationships. This constant focus on absence is no coincidence. It is the main cog in this prison. The Kybalion, with its principle of all is mind, whispers to us that your external reality is an unwavering mirror of your internal state of mind. If the mind is perpetually anchored in lack, what else could it manifest but more lack? It is the vicious cycle of self-prophecy, where the fear of scarcity engenders the conditions for its own perpetuation. You think you are preparing for the future, but in reality, you are painting tomorrow with the colors of today's fear, an illusion woven by misguided attention. The most formidable guardian of this first level is, without a doubt, the ever-present fear of failure. It's not just the fear of stumbling, but of social disapproval, of being singled out, of losing the illusory security that the system promises in exchange for your submission. This aversion to error paralyzes you, preventing you from exploring the uncharted paths of your own creative potential. Ancient tribes, in their struggle for physical survival, severely punished any deviation from the norms that might endanger the group. That primal echo of exclusion as a death sentence still resonates in your collective subconscious, an ancestral mandate that drives you to value conformity over innovation, security over freedom. The fear of failure is, in essence, the fear of transformation, the fear of transcending self-imposed limits. Because every leap into the unknown implies a reconfiguration of your identity that the ego, clinging to the known, fiercely resists. It is the tribal warning echoing, "Do not stray from the path, or you will be devoured by darkness." Confined to this first level of vibration, your existence becomes a constant exercise in defense and accumulation, a perpetual cycle of anxiety and insatiable pursuit. You believe you are building security, but in reality, you are erecting ever higher walls around your soul, preventing the entry of true abundance and spontaneous joy. Scarcity is not an immutable cosmic law, but a cultivated vibration, a consensual reality fueled by misguided collective attention. But this prison, like every illusion, has its cracks, its vanishing points that the light of consciousness can penetrate. The first step toward liberation is not the blind struggle against fear, but the deep understanding of its illusory nature, the realization that true responsibility lies with your higher self, and authentic realism is the ability to perceive the totality of possibilities, not merely the shadows projected by a fearful mind. The key isn't to look outside, but to recalibrate the internal lens, to shift your attention from what's missing to what is and what can be. But how do you break the strings of this cosmic puppet, and what hidden vibration lurks beyond the shadows of necessity, waiting to be awakened to rewrite your destiny? And so, at the crossroads where the fear of scarcity and the futility of mere defense meet, a spark of what appears to be a new dawn emerges: rebellion. It is not the rebellion of the spirit seeking transcendent freedom, but that of the ego, cunning and ambitious, which has learned a partial lesson. It has realized that perpetual alertness and mere accumulation for survival are a prison, but its response is not the dissolution of the walls, but the construction of a taller, more imposing castle, where control is king and constant effort, its tireless servant. It is the moment when the automaton of survival takes the reins and decides to be the architect of its own destiny, unaware that the plans it uses are still tinged with the shadows of its previous prison. This is the second vibrational level, a phase where the linear mind sets itself up as sovereign, believing it can dominate the cosmic currents with the force of its will, without understanding that the will, devoid of the wisdom of the heart, is a sword that, in the long run, only turns against itself. Mastery is confused with enslavement to one's own ambitions, a cycle that, if not understood, condemns the soul to a race with no real goal, only exhaustion. In this new phase, the being throws itself into the maelstrom of goals and purposes, weaving intricate webs of planning and strategy, believing that each objective achieved is a stepping stone to true freedom. Security is pursued through the accumulation of achievements, validation through external recognition, and power through the manipulation of circumstances. Constant effort becomes a mantra, a sacred motto that it is believed can bend any reality to one's convenience. Remember the ancient tales, those that speak of the Tower of Babel, not only as a story of divine punishment for pride, but as a profound metaphor for humanity attempting to reach the heavens through purely material effort and construction, ignoring the intrinsic connection with the whole, the unifying language of the spirit. The builders, in their desire for control, forgot the essence of flow, and their efforts, though titanic, were doomed to fragmentation, to the incomprehension of the languages of the soul. This is where intention, although powerful, becomes a chain if it is misaligned with the true purpose of the being. This frantic quest for control, this incessant work of construction, paradoxically leads to a new and more sophisticated form of imprisonment, exhaustion, and perpetual urgency. Vital energy, which should be a source of inspiration and spontaneous creativity, is channeled almost entirely toward achieving self-imposed goals, leaving the soul thirsty and the body fatigued. Urgency becomes an ever-present shadow, whispering in the ear that there is no time to waste, that every moment must be productive, that a pause is synonymous with failure. It is a prison that, unlike the first, is not perceived as such, for it is adorned with the illusions of progress and success. It feels like a choice, a show of determination, when in reality, it is a hypnotic dance dictated by the ego. It refuses to let go of the reins, fearing the emptiness it believes rest and surrender could bring. The cycles of nature, flow and thaw, rest, are ignored in pursuit of a relentless linearity that promises an unattainable summit. Dependence on one's own effort. The foundation of this second vibrational level is the most subtle trap. Believing oneself to be the sole architect of one's destiny, the individual isolates oneself, severing the invisible threads that connect one to the vast network of cosmic support and universal intelligence. The ego, inflated by the illusion of having overcome the inertia of survival, establishes itself as a benevolent tyrant, demanding ever more of itself and, by extension, of its environment. Certain Hermetic texts, those rarely published, speak of the hubris of the demiurge, not as an evil being, but as an entity that, in its desire to create and control, separates itself from the primordial source, generating a universe of limitations. Through pure will and materiality, it is forgotten that true mastery lies not in forcing one's will upon reality, but in aligning oneself with it, in being a conscious channel for universal energy to manifest without resistance. This is a lesson in humility disguised as boundless ambition, a call to recognize that real power lies not in solitary effort, but in resonance with the whole. Thus, the pursuit of control, while an evolutionary step from mere survival, is revealed as a veil hiding a deeper truth. It is a vibrant garden, yes, but one cultivated with the sword of effort and watered with the tears of exhaustion, where the flowers of spontaneous joy and inner peace struggle to bloom. Success, in this light, becomes a gilded cage, its bars forged by the constant need to maintain the illusion of mastery. It is not about abandoning purpose or action, but about transcending the need to control, about understanding that life force is not a reservoir that runs dry, but a flowing river, and true wisdom lies in learning to navigate its currents gracefully, rather than trying to divert them with dams of effort. What happens then when the tireless builder of his personal tower, exhausted from his labors, looks up and wonders if the summit is the true destination, or if there is a higher peak, a more intimate connection that is only revealed when the chisel and hammer are laid down, and the heart opens to a different melody, to a level of vibration where control dissolves into a symphony of harmony and purpose. It is when the chisel and hammer are laid down, when the heart opens to that different melody, that the highest peak is revealed not as a point of arrival, but as a state of being, a vibration of oneness where control dissolves into the perfect symphony of existence. True mastery is not in mastering the river, but in becoming the river itself, flowing without resistance, trusting every bend, every eddy, every calm. It is here, in this conscious surrender, that the limitless power of the universe is channeled through you, not by you. Enlightenment is not an act of conquest, but of profound recognition. We are part of a cosmic dance, a sacred choreography where each being effortlessly finds its place, guided by a higher wisdom that transcends any personal ambition. Peace lies in knowing that life is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived, felt, and embodied in every breath. And you, truth seeker, what wall of control will you tear down today to allow the universal symphony to lift you to a higher vibration? If these truths have ignited a spark within you, we urge you to join our brotherhood of seekers. Subscribe, share this message, and together we will weave a web of consciousness that transforms the veil into revelation. Knowledge is a beacon, and each voice that joins this chorus amplifies its light. The next portal awaits. We will unveil the secrets of intuition, as your spiritual compass, an ancient map for navigating these new currents.